To be very honest with you, I didn't know the difference. And I know that may sound cliche, but it was a smaller neighborhood where the school was right in the middle of the neighborhood. The grocery store was outside of the neighborhood, small town in Chesapeake. So I really didn't experience that until middle school or junior high school, as it was called then. And just understanding how people that did not look like me were treated differently, and just the experiences that I saw, then going into, let's say, the mall. If you want to hang out as a middle schooler, the hangout was the mall, and just watching how the clerks would interact with me versus my counterparts or the kids that grew up. And at that point in middle school, I then began to ask my parents questions of, if me and Johnny were in the store, we would get followed, or we would be asked certain questions, or if the mall security would just follow us around and tell us to leave earlier than people that were my same age and were allowed to stay. So middle school was when I really began to see how the differences or the treatment, and it wasn't harsh, it was always subtle. I don't even want to paint a picture of me growing up and I was hated as being Black. It was just those subtle things that made me want to ask questions. And I'm glad my parents were able to have those conversations, those candid conversations. And then I began to understand and educate myself of our history. And not that it wasn't taught before, but I really began to understand where we were. And another impact, my parents were in the 50s, they were born in 1954. And at the early age, they were still during segregation. So it was, I guess they didn't know how to tell me about that. But once I began to experience it, became more comfortable for them to tell.
Growing up Black, I really didn't notice until I started working in the workforce, because my mom was in the military. So we moved around and it was very diverse. I really didn't see color, white or Black, but I did notice once I grew up and started working in the workforce that there was a difference and people were treated differently in the workforce. And I felt it was because of the color of our skin.
Honestly, it was just regular. We did everything that other culture did. Colonial Boys Club, WW Houston Boys Club, Southside Boys Club, and then, staying in different housing projects or areas. We've had rec centers. Unlike today's youth, they don't have the Boys and Girls Club. They don't have the rec centers. So we grew up like everybody. Like we went, we're Black kids from the inner city. We went skiing with the Boys Club. That's unheard of. We went hunting. We went camping, and no animals were harmed during that camping trip. But, we wanted to do hunting. We wanted to experience things that other cultures or other, people they had the experience, but we didn't have those same opportunities. We made do with what we had. Everybody was practically family, because where we lived, it was mainly low income, single parent homes for the majority of us. And in my life, I came across a very good friend who was in foster care. He passed away some years later. But like I say, to me, it was just living. It was never a thing of being Black, because we grew up, we went to the same schools in the same communities until they brought in busing when they were shipping us cross towns of schools. And you had some reality checks then.
I didn't experience too much when I was younger. When I got older, I did notice it a lot. Younger, I was more of a friendly person, wanted to interact with a lot of people. So I didn't kind of understand racism if it came towards me. Like I said, my parents may have talked about it, but I didn't understand it. Like, how can someone not like me because of my skin color? I had a lot of friends who are of different race, so it didn't bother me back then as much. But like I said, when I got older, there were some things that I did not like, and it hurt a little bit. But when I was little, yeah, I had a lot of friends. Got joked because I was, small and had glasses and big hair, but who didn't? So, and that wasn't just from, opposite race. So whites and stuff like that. It was blacks too. But yeah, younger, growing up black, I mean, I had a good life back then. So.
To be honest, I did a lot of pondering about that question. And to be honest, as a kid, I didn't really have much that I was involved in. I saw it on in TV, and I love to read ever since I've been a little kid. And I would see them on the magazine covers that my grandmother would get or my mom would get. I would find my dad would read them sometimes. And then I would pick them up after they laid them down, because the images that I would see made me curious. But outside of at home, I spent a lot of times with my cousins, which you probably hear this saying sometimes, that your cousins are your first friends. So that's really how it was for me. And being in that bubble, we didn't really see that. Well, I know I did. I never had a lot of that happen until we left the area here in Virginia. My dad was in the Navy, so we traveled and we lived in Hawaii for 4 years. Now, when I went to school and I left home in Virginia in my little bubble with family, I did see some things for myself, actually. And I didn't understand what was going on, because a lot of the Hawaiians, they were actually darker than I. So it was interesting to me why they were calling me these names. Now, I've heard these names before, but they were never explained to me at home, because I would hear them not directed at me. But here, those words in Hawaii, actually, those words were actually meant directly to me. So finally, I had to go home and ask. My parents had this look on their faces wondering, I guess, how do we tell Lisa what this means? Because they never had to deal with it before. So it was a little different for me. And it was also difficult because I didn't understand why they were calling me these names, because a lot of them were as dark or darker than I was. So it was a bit confusing to have that that transition happen to me when I lived in Hawaii.
Without giving long drawn out stories and examples, I would describe it as definitely an emotional roller coaster. I started off in Park Place in Norfolk, and I'm born in '86. So I felt accepted. I thought everything was normal. This is how the rest of the world was, because everyone looked and dressed like me. And then we moved to Smithfield in '95. At that time, African Americans were secluded to a small area of Smithfield, and if they didn't live there in that impoverished section, then they lived out in the country in a double wide trailer in a dirt driveway. So we lived in a housing development, and it was a huge culture shock for us. There was a feeling of being unwanted, ashamed of being Black, because not many people looked like us, and then the ones that did, they were more impoverished than we were, so we weren't exactly accepted by them either. So I felt very shameful to be African American, pretty much from elementary, middle, into the very early parts of high school. I do remember moments of wishing that I was white or Caucasian, and some of that was to be accepted. The other part of that was because their parents were more engaged and more involved than mine were. I had both parents, but my mom worked 2 jobs. My dad was in the Navy for 22 years, so he did a lot of 9-month cruises. He was out for the Gulf War. I remember we had some stuff in Bosnia. He was over there for that. So I didn't have a really close relationship with him until I got out of high school. So when I would see their parents at the sporting events, going camping, going fishing, those type of things, I thought only Caucasian families and kids got those experiences. So I did, growing up, want to have several moments where I wanted to be white. And then as I got into high school, all that kind of shifted because I was pretty good at athletics. I was Casanova in my class. And so in a small town like this, if you're good at sports and athletics, you become popular and accepted. Everybody likes you. And so the whole race thing really wasn't an issue for me then, because I got along and I was accepted by everybody regardless. And then, however, when I hung out with my Black friends, I would still have instances and run-ins with law enforcement, which were a reminder that I'm still not 100% accepted, regardless of how good I play sports and things like that. And then as I got into the workforce as an adult, I'm more aware of my surroundings and what's going on. And then I got to see firsthand some of the challenges and setbacks that were at hand. And what it did, it just motivated me to work harder, because I understood that I had to work 2, twice, and sometimes 3 times harder than the man next to me or woman if I wanted to get on the same playing field. And so those propelled me to get my degrees. I have an associate's, bachelor's, and master's now. And I make 6 figures. My wife, she's got an associate's degree and she makes 6 figures more than I do. So we've been very blessed, and we're very, in our minds, we're successful from where we came from. But I don't think I would have been as motivated and reached the levels that we have reached. We got a long way to go still without the challenges that we face having to grow up as a minority. So in a nutshell, I felt accepted, and then I felt ashamed, unworthy, unwanted. And then it was more of awareness, and then it was, okay, how can I improve and better myself, and then reach out and help some others that are like me.